Well, hey everyone, welcome to Residual Income Formula. I have a treat for you today. I have a good friend of mine, Mr. Jordan Adler, who is one of the best networkers, frankly, in the world, and is a top income earner with his company. His company is all about residual income, being able to have that type of income come in month after month to pay for your residual bills. So, Jordan, hello, how are you?
Gary, nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me to our webinar here.
Yeah, happy to have you. I've followed you a long time, and you are a mentor of mine, and you have taught me so much about residual income. I can unequivocally state that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So I really appreciate you and all
Thank
that
you.
you do for us.
And it's great seeing you build a really healthy residual check over the years.
I tell you, during this COVID, it saved my bacon.
I know.
It
I
was
know.
still a struggle. It was
Yeah.
still a struggle, but it would have been horrible if I didn't have about half of my bills now are paid by my residual
Yeah.
income.
When you have a residual check that covers your primary bills, like if you somebody who has a residual check that covers their rent and their car payment, that takes a lot of pressure off.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, well, I know that you've been a big fan of residual income for a long time. I believe that you found a book in a garage sale 20, probably 25 years ago now. I don't want to date you, but it's been a few years, and that kind of opened up your mind to residual income. Tell me about the very first time, a long time ago, something that maybe happened to you after you started building a residual income where you realized, this is the bee's knees. This is the most
Well,
amazing thing.
first of all, I mean, it started with just that planting that seed of thought around an idea that I'd never been introduced to before in my first 20 years of life, and that was the idea of getting paid over and over again for working one time. And when I picked up this book, The 10 Napkin Presentations by Don Failla, at a garage sale for a quarter in my 20s, and read it, I was introduced to that concept, and I believed it was true, and I liked it a lot. All my friends and my parents and their friends and everybody I knew, the way that they made money is they went to work and they got a paycheck. But I'd never heard the concept of going to work and getting paid over and over again for working one time. And I liked that and got really excited about it because I saw it as a ticket to freedom. And, many, many years later, after building a large residual check that has allowed me to live a pretty fantastic life, I start learning that most successful entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs, most of them have some form of residual, meaning that they can take time off and still get paid, which is super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You went on a vacation to Bora Bora, I think, in the last year or two, and you told me a great story of you went with a orthopedic surgeon and a couple friends of yours, and the surgeon had an awakening. Would you mind telling that story?
Yeah, so he's very successful. He has his own private jet. In fact, we took the private jet from Vegas to LA to catch the flight to Bora Bora. And I was with about 7 people, and we were at St. Regis where they filmed Couples Retreat. And it was a great trip. And there was one day we rented a big home and just hung out at this little home right on the beach. It had a nice deck, and there were water toys and all kinds of things. And we were hanging out on the rafts just in the bay, just like laying on the beach and hanging out in the rafts. And the guy, Mike Crevetti is his name. He's the #1 orthopedic surgeon in Las Vegas.
Very well known.
Yeah, very well known. He's got commercials on TV and all that. And he's made millions of dollars doing what he does. And he's been doing it for 30 years. And as we're laying there, I'm with some other network marketers that also have large residual checks. And as we're laying there, he said to us, he goes, Jordan, the difference, and he was not just talking to me, he was talking to the others as well. The difference between me and you guys is you're sitting here relaxing because, you have money pouring into your bank account while we're out here in Bora Bora. And I'm stressing out because I feel like I need to get back to work because if I don't get into the operating room, I'm not making money. And he's got bills to pay. He's got overhead. He's got a very large facility with, you know, rehabilitation and surgery rooms and all this. And he's got a lot of doctors working for him. And he realized that he did not have residual income. He has residual bills like most people do, but no residual income. And it was kind of an eye opener for him. We were laughing about it.
Yeah. You've owned a lot of rental homes because that's a way that a lot of people think that residual income can happen. I know that you've owned probably 20 or 30 homes at one time or renting them all out. Talk about real estate and rentals as a residual income.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can create residual. I mean, you could buy vending machines, and a vending machine is going to cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 per machine for a decent machine. And then you got to get the machines placed. And then once you have them placed, they have to be producing, because a lot of machines get placed and then they never have anybody buying anything out of them. You're never going to make a lot of money off one vending machine. And you got to collect the money and, you know, tabulate a report and stock the machine and all that. You're going to have 10 or 20 machines. And if a machine's $3,000, you're looking at, you know, $30,000 to $60,000 for a bunch of machines. And then you have to have a staff or somebody to go around and maintain all the machines and all that. It's a lot of work, but it can produce a residual check. Real estate, the same thing. I owned 49 rentals at my peak.
Wow.
I owned rentals for about 15 years. I don't own any anymore. I sold all of them. It took me about 3 years to sell all of them. It was just at one point I decided I wanted out, because that was not my main area of focus. And I did make money. With 49 rentals, I had them in Cleveland, Milwaukee, Grand Rapids, Clarkdale, Arizona, Cottonwood. So it costs typically, unless you have a bunch of cash. If you have a bunch of cash, you can buy rentals for, you know, $20,000 to $30,000 in some of the cities. But if you don't have cash and you have to finance, you know, you're looking at thousands of dollars, even if you're financing upfront. And you got to have good credit, and you got to put 30% down if you're buying rentals most of the time.
Right.
And it's a big project to accumulate. And then you got to get a renter in there and a property manager. And then the difference between your mortgage payment and what you're getting paid in rents, minus management fee, minus repairs, all that, you know, on a decent rental, if you make a $200 to $400 a month residual from that with a whole lot of work, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You know, so I just, it's a lot of work. And then the thing that people don't look at is there's always unexpected surprises, like a roof that needs to be replaced and it's going to cost you $30,000 to do it. Oof. Or vandals get into one of the rentals and break some of the windows or steal some appliances, and you find out your property manager doesn't have the errors and omissions insurance, and so it ends up costing you a pretty penny. Or a lawsuit. Those things happen. And so you have to be prepared for that kind of thing. I personally love network marketing because it's very low maintenance, and it's just as hard as building a real estate business. Every business is hard.
Right.
It just takes time. It takes focus. It takes consistency, and it takes a willingness to work through the issues and the problems, and a high level of resourcefulness in any business.
That's
However,
right.
I like network marketing because I'm not responsible for the distributors that join my organization. They're responsible for their own businesses, but I get a cut for helping them get started. So my only job is to help them get started right. And then I'm looking for people that on their own, by their own accord, want to have a successful business, and they will go out and do it. I don't have to do it for them, and I get a cut of everything they do. And so that's how network marketing works. You get the leverage of people. In real estate, you get the leverage of homes. In vending machines, you get the leverage of the machines. I like the leverage of people because there's a limit to what one house will produce. There's a limit to what one vending machine will produce, but there's no limit to what one person will produce.
You love network marketing because of the fact of leverage. Talk to us a little bit about, you have said many times that the hardest part of a network marketing company is the beginning, the first year or 2 or 3 years. But you have noticed, and you've grown a couple of very large network marketing businesses, that the bigger your business is, the easier it is because you're transferring responsibility. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in most businesses, the bigger you get, the more responsibility there is. The bigger you get, the more challenges there are. Let me just say it to you this way. The more successful you become in a traditional business, the less freedom you have. The more successful you become in a network marketing business, the more freedom you have.
Well, that in a nutshell is the power of network marketing and the power of residual income. It's just so amazing, but the concept works. And the first time you get a check from doing something from your network marketing company, that right there is proof of concept. And then, as you said 2 nights ago, it's just numbers. It's just numbers doing that same thing over and over and over again. When you find that gold nugget, that person that puts on their running shoes and starts running with you, man, that gets to be really exciting. And that's when your business changes. When you've got that running mate with you, that's when your business becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, and they're out there. There are people out there that will do this, not for you, but for them, because they want to have a sense of freedom for themselves and their family. And so they'll go work. And because you're the one that got them started, you're entitled to a percentage of what they produce, the volume they produce. And it feels good to know that once you've spent your money for the month, those checks are coming back. I had a friend, in fact, I was on a podcast that he just did earlier today. He's very successful in network marketing, been in network marketing for 30 years. And I used to see him do a little demonstration where he'd pull $100 out of his pocket and he'll say, is there anybody in the room that has $100? And if they do, they pull it out. And he says, what's the difference between your $100 bill and my $100 bill? And they go, I don't know. And he goes, my $100 bill comes back every month. And that's the truth. You spend the money this month, and if you've got a residual check, it comes back next month. And you got to have a product. You've got to have a product that people want and they want to buy, and they want to buy it over and over again. There are lots of different products like that. There's video, there's utilities, there's health and nutritional products, there's nutrition shakes, there's weight loss products, there's card sending systems, all different kinds of things out there that people buy over and over and over again. Yeah. And if they're paying it every month and you're the one that set it up, you get paid every month.
We'll talk a little bit about that because that's a really important concept, is that we get paid for what we start. Can you go and expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've had people come to me, and I don't really, I have people come to me and say, well, how much money did you make your first year? And it's really hard for me to answer that question because I'm getting paid 10 years later, 15 years later off work that I did my first year.
Wow.
So, if somebody asks you, if you've been in the business for 2 years, how much money have you made? You don't know the answer to that because you're still getting paid on it.
I love that.
So if you're making $100 a month off of an organization, for example, that's $1,200 a year. But if that pays you for 5 years, that's not just $1,200. That's $6,000, right?
Right.
So, yeah. And then the other thing to look at is that if you were to take an amount of money and put it into an interest-bearing account, if you could get 5%, and you put $100,000 into an account, you're going to make $5,000 a year. But let's just say this: you produce an organization that produces $5,000 a year for you.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of having $100,000 putting into an interest-bearing account at 5%, which is really hard to get.
Yeah.
So it's like having between $100,000 and $300,000 in the bank if you have a $5,000 a year residual check.
Well, I'm familiar with your company, and when you sign up someone at one of the best plans, it's like putting $5,500 in the bank.
Right. Every time I sign somebody up on a $97 a month plan, I make $240 a year. That's like putting $5,000 or $6,000. Every single, I'll just sign somebody up. It's like putting $5,000 in the bank.
And that's so powerful for you folks out there that were like me, that spent too much money during their lifetime, having too many nice things, nice cars, nice vacations, and you didn't save for the future. And that's one of the reasons why I got excited about residual income, is that I knew that I needed to change the dynamic of what was going to happen at retirement, which was a goose egg. And I needed to create a business system that brought in that residual income, because I didn't have the $1 or $2 million that you need as a nest egg to be able to retire comfortably today. When you have a strong residual income, it would seem to me that life, you breathe easier, that life is, you still have concerns, you still have worries, but that it has to be different when you know that check is coming in and you don't need to worry about paying your bills. Talk to us about the mental change that happens as you start to develop a residual income that starts to free up your life.
Yeah, I was my first job when I moved to Arizona back in the 80s was working for one of my first jobs, I should say, was working for the state of Arizona. And I had a cubicle, and this was back when you could still smoke inside. And my cubicle partner across the cubicle right across from me was a guy named Elvio that had been working for the city for 30 years, and he smoked cigars, and he used to smoke cigars in the building all day long while he was working. The place was just filled with smoke. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be, Elvio has to go to work every day, and he's been working here for 30 years, and I was in my early 20s. I said, I don't want to be like Elvio. I want to have lifestyle freedom. I want to be able to say, you know what, I want to take a trip to the British Virgin Islands, or I want to take a trip to Bora Bora, or I want to go to the Dominican Republic when I want to go and not have to check with anybody. And for years, I had a boss for 17 years. So for 17 years, I had to get I had to take my vacation when they told me I could get my vacation. And I remember the anxiety and the feeling of, always trying to figure out how I was going to pay my bills with my measly little job check. And so I told my boss one time that I was going to be building a business that would allow me to eventually free myself from corporate America. And she laughed. Her name was Sarah. She laughed at me. She didn't believe it. And most people don't believe it, and that's why they don't have it. You do breathe easier when you have a residual check. Imagine if you had a check that equaled your bills. So think about, what are your bills every month, all right? And what would happen if every single month you had 4 checks that came in, that the total of those 4 checks equaled your bills? Maybe start off by saying, you know what, I'm going to start off by creating a residual check that will cover my cell phone bill. And then once that's covered, every month it gets paid. The next month I'm going to get a check. If my car's not paid off, I'm going to get a check that covers my car payment and the insurance on my car. And once that's covered, then I'm going to get a check that covers my mortgage or my rent. And you just do that, and you work up towards the point you raise, your bills are here, your income's here, your residual, raise that residual to where it's equal. And it might take you 2 to 5 years to do that or more,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
I drove a clunker for a few years until I got my residual income, and I went out and bought a brand new car, and I drive it, and it's a free car in my mind.
Car, your checks cover that car.
It's amazing. And so when that happens with me, I know that I will have the freedom that if I don't want to stay in Vegas, I don't have to. I can move to Sacramento or Boise or New York, Hawaii. I'm changing now. I want to get a sailboat and just sail up and down the coast and stop at different cities for months, just to build my business.
Didn't you tell me you wanted a Triumph?
I had a Triumph TR6, and I would love another one if I could rehab it and make it the car that I originally drove back in 1976, kind of like recreating that experience that I had, which I think is a good segue, because network marketing, you can make money, but let's talk about the experiences that you have that really aren't related to money. Can you talk a little bit about the experiences that money brings you? It's not the money per se, it's the experiences that you enjoy. Talk a little bit about.
No doubt about it. So I've got lots and lots of hundreds of friends, that I can tell you their names, that have large residual checks, that have built those checks over anywhere from 5 to 20 to 30 years. And we've traveled, some of us have traveled all over the world together. We've rented beautiful big places on the water all over the world. I was in Cancun with Todd and Carla Falcone and a bunch of their friends. And we were, we rented we had I think it was a 7,500 square foot home with multiple bedrooms. And we just hung out there for a week. And you can do that, and you can create stories and experiences. And I've done that. I've traveled all over the world on private jets. And gotten access to some things that most people wouldn't. For example, they closed a carnival for us in Germany, and we got to go and take the carnival rides, just our group. And these were all people that had residual income, and we had flown in on a private jet into Freiburg, Germany. But you gain access. Like, when you have a nice income that comes in every month, things like being able to sit in the first row at a concert. Maybe it's a concert where, you know, you have to pay quite a bit extra to sit up front or to get backstage, and to be able to meet some people that you've looked up to over the years that have maybe inspired you, people that you wouldn't normally get to meet if you just had a normal job. And then also being able to sleep in the morning. If you build your own schedule. So, you know, if you decide I'm not going to do any work, I don't work till 11. I start with my work at 11 typically. And so I sleep in the morning, I get up, I work out, I drink coffee, I'll sit out on the deck, I'll read. My morning is pretty much work free till about 11. And then I'll work from 11 to 4 or 5. And then the evenings I'll take that off. And then I do, prior to the pandemic, I was traveling quite a bit. And a lot of it was personal, and a little bit of it was business. But it gives you choices that you wouldn't normally get. It gives you experiences. It allows you to create experiences. One of the things that I'm doing is, and I would not be able to have done this if it wasn't for residual income, is I'm going to be one of the first civilians to go to space. I'm part of Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic Civilian Space Program. And I had an opportunity to spend a week with him. And I never have to say, I can't do that because I have to work. I haven't had to say that in many, many years, but I used to have to say that. And I hear it all the time from people that don't have residual income. I can't do that because I have to work. I don't have that. That doesn't exist in my world anymore, but it did for 17 years.
But you
So
would drive up to your cabin on Sunday night and you see all the lights of all the people coming down because their boss is jerking their chain saying, it's time to come back and make me money. I'll pay you a little bit, but I'm going to make some money.
Yeah, Sunday night, most people have to drive back down the mountain and go back to work.
What do dreams have to do with residual income? How important are dreams to building a different life or a residual income?
Well, really, why build a residual income unless you have dreams? You know, you've got to have, and the truth is, when somebody tells me they don't have any dreams, that just tells me that they've given up on their dreams. I think dreams are built into who we are as human beings. It's part of, but life tends to beat people down, and rather than constantly getting disappointed because their current work choices haven't allowed them to have their dreams, they'll release their dreams and say, you know what, they really aren't that important. And the truth is, they are important. You wouldn't have had them if they weren't important. You wouldn't have ever had those dreams if they weren't important to you. So what I teach people to do is to rekindle those dreams, to start to dream again and stretch a little bit. Write down some things that maybe you don't even believe are possible. And then rather than hoping that your job or your traditional business that requires you to show up to make money, rather than hoping that's going to take you there, start to give a sliver of your time to something that you can accumulate your income over time so that at some point you'll be able to afford those things that you want, that you couldn't have now. So I live a life today. I've been really fortunate because of the choices that I've made. It was a conscious choice to align myself with opportunities that throw off residual income over the course of the past 25 years versus aligning myself with opportunities that throw off linear income. There's linear income and nonlinear income. Nonlinear income is limited. It has a ceiling. Work once, get paid once. Nonlinear income does not have a ceiling. Work once, get paid hundreds of times, so you can actually accumulate an income stream over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're just about done here, so I'm going to ask you one final question, and that really is, if you have one thing to say to us, Jordan, about residual income other than do it, what would that be?
Well, I would say, first of all, probably the thing that will reach the most people is that most people don't believe residual income is possible. And most people, if they do believe residual income is possible, they don't believe it's possible for them. And if they don't believe it, they don't do anything about it. So the first step is to do your research so you understand that there are millions of people in the world that get paid residual income. And it's no different than working a job. It's just a different choice. And when you choose vehicles that produce it, it will completely transform your life.
And it's been a pleasure to hang out with you today and learn from you. You're always a fount of wisdom. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I know that our listeners are going to as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary. It was a pleasure.
All right. You take care now.
Bye-bye.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope that you got some great information. Guys, residual income is within your grasp. You're just a decision away. Join us again next Thursday when we're going to talk about how to launch your business the correct way to have the most effect. Take care, everyone.